delicious. My, what an interesting case this one is. Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom is a Japanese role-playing game that almost didn't get a Japanese release. Even Level 5 admits that it was made pretty much just for the West, and not in the condescending way like the last time that happened. Even with Studio Ghibli leaving the series, the original's cult following leaves the sequel with a certain level of expectation, and yet, despite that, it still left me kinda surprised. For one, combat has been completely overhauled from the first game. Gone are the little sprites you gave orders to instead of directly controlling, and in are actual characters whose well-being and safety have real bearing on the story. Already we're a step up. Fighting still takes place in real time, and you have enough options in terms of blocks, dodges, ranged attacks, and special moves to keep fights, and especially the bosses, from ever getting too boring. Later, you recruit little wisps known as Higglies to unleash huge, battle-changing moves like deploying a siege cannon, creating a healing field, and swallowing up your enemies in a field of darkness that does a ridiculous amount of damage. But they only do it when it suits them, so your best friend in battle will always be good reflexes and pattern memorization. Bayonetta is still the gold standard when it comes to this kind of combat, and while this is nowhere near that level, it's still immensely satisfying to blow away an entire group of enemies with a single special move, or dodge at just the right time. This is also a JRPG that has the decency to show you those enemies on the field instead of randomly shoving you into encounters, so it earns another gold star for that. Outside of battle, you eventually unlock the actual kingdom from the game's title, and the personal motivation of main character Evan. Kingdom management is a huge part of what makes this game get even better as it goes, because properly managing what shops to build when and employing the right people into them can accelerate your progress and make your team more powerful than you could ever imagine. Side quests in this game aren't just there for fluff. Every single one you complete recruits a new person to come live in your budding new monarchy, and they all bring their own sets of skills that help this process go even more smoothly. The end result is that ticking boxes in this game feels less like going down a checklist of objectives and makes progression feel really freaking good. It all feeds back into character advancement, and it rewards you for getting more intimate with the world by finding rare items and potential new townsfolk. I just wish the act of getting sidetracked was always something I instigated. Unfortunately, one of the JRPG traps this game falls into is that it tends to get distracted. Riddle me this, Batman. How exactly does fetching a rose for a baby-talking librarian have anything to do with building a kingdom and avenging my family? Sure, I got to fight a dragon, and I gained a couple new generals out of the deal, but that wasn't the point of this exercise. It's not what I was told I came here to do. From time to time, I find myself feeling jerked around in this game, overwhelmed by this nagging sensation that there's something more important my party should probably be spending their time on. The key here is player agency. When I decide to ignore the story so I can recruit more townsfolk, that's my choice, and technically, it's still keeping in character because it benefits the overall goal. When the game tells me I need to bribe an old lady with seemingly random items before I can get the information surrounding my potential adversaries, that's annoying, especially when I have to go way out of my way to get them. It sucks because the game does everything else right. The English voiceover is great. You get the ability to fast travel impressively early, and I'm sure you've noticed by now how beautiful it is. Few games do cell shading this well. It looks better than Dragon Ball FighterZ. It almost stands up to the Ultimate Ninja Storm games, especially during set-piece moments. But it also occasionally pulls that trick where it fades to black while an NPC they didn't feel like animating is doing something, and yeah, that's disappointing. But then the endgame social media service Leafbook, yes seriously, offers me an unofficial side quest for extra treasure, and I'm like, yeah, I can overlook a couple budget cuts. I think the greatest part about this game is its power to do that to me, convince me that the flaws are worth ignoring. They are there, and they do detract from what's going on, but I don't mind them as much as I probably would otherwise, because everything else is worth it. This setting is worth it, these characters are worth it, the overall message that it's trying to portray feels genuine, and in a world like ours where nothing can ever hope to be perfect anyway, convincing someone to turn off their cynical side is the most powerful thing you can possibly do. I say this a lot, but I want to expand on it this time. I love video games for the escapism. When you buy a game like this, there's a silent promise that gets made between you and the developer, that if you are dedicated enough, if you try hard enough, and if you're willing to cast aside excuses and accept responsibility for where you eventually end up in their world, you will find satisfaction. There will be a happy ending waiting for you. That's a lesson worth applying to real life, and it's the whole theme of this game. That's everything Ni no Kuni 2 is all about. I mean, yeah, there is that cynical part of my brain that's going, oh, world peace, huh? That's your goal? You want to unite all the kingdoms, was it? If I had a week, I couldn't explain all the logistical and humanitarian problems with that plan. And while I think that could make for an interesting story if it addressed those concerns, in this case, I'm not sure I'd prefer it. In fact, the more I play of this game, the more that little part of my brain gets told by the rest of it to just shut up and enjoy the ride already. It's the Disney approach to fantasy. There's a difference between what your head wants and what your heart wants, of letting emotion primarily drive the narrative rather than logic. And neither approach is inherently better than the other, so long as that's what you personally enjoy. And in my case, I somehow keep forgetting how liberating it can feel to stop questioning everything and just play a game for a little while. It's an exercise in postmodernism. It's a piece of art for people who are tired of tearing the medium to shreds and just want to get back to what makes it good again. And you know what? We could use more games like that. I give Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom my rating of stuffed crust. In some ways, you could argue that this is worse for you than other offerings on the market, but it's comfort food, it's memories of childhood, it's something simple and enjoyable that brings you back to a better time, and maybe, just maybe, helps you get through that rough patch in your day.